Some of the financing we're going to be talking about is complicated, but at the same time, with a little bit of practice, you'll get it. But it's also the least important, believe it or not. And the reason it's the least important is because mostly what you need to do is get the spirit of the deal down with the seller and understanding of how they're going to get paid and when they're going to get paid. And then that does have to be memorialized. And then that's where it gets tedious. But you don't even have to memorialize it yourself. You send it to me, try to put it together. I'll fix it based on what you told me is going to happen. And then I'll explain it to you why we did it this way, why we didn't do it that way. Once you've done it a couple, 2, 3 times, it's not going to be an issue anymore. You'll be self-reliant as it relates to paperwork. So, follow along with what we're going to talk about here, but don't get hung up on it. Being able to handle a difficult seller, being able to get them off the phone. Don't stay on as long as I did. Again, I was, for example's sake, wanting to go through the whole rigmarole so that you could kind of understand your alternatives. But as soon as you start that feeling, ask them the questions, and if they're rude, they're probably not the right person to be working with. But do keep the option open to get the realtor listing because people's attitudes and minds change a week or two later or a month or two later. And if you handled their vitriol well, they see you as a professional and they like that. They didn't burn the bridge. Because remember, if they're doing that to you, they're probably doing it to the other people as well. And if you're the one who handled the best, you've got the best shot at ultimately getting the deal when the situation gets more dire for that seller. Okay, so be cool is what I'm saying when you're on the phone with people who act like jerks. You don't have to get this one. This is the Texas Instruments BA35. Tons of them still on eBay if you want to use this one. I find it to be the easiest one to use. It's a really good thing to have for a lot of reasons. Let's talk about it. This is the same calculator that I've used since maybe 96, almost 30 years. Any new one will be fine. We just need to basically solve for one of these functions here, right? NI is interest rate, P is payment, PV is present value, FV is future value. Okay, we're really using these keys that I'm showing right here. And by the way, that goes to what I talked about last night. If you don't have the variables, you can't solve. I probably should have used this as an example last night. When I get deal evaluation forms that are not fully filled out, and then somebody says, how would you structure this deal? How in the world could I possibly answer that question? It's like you're literally telling me, I need to solve for X, and here's the equation. A plus B equals X. But you don't tell me what A or B is. How in the world could I possibly solve the problem? It's the same thing here. I can figure out the interest rate if I have 3 of these 4 variables. Present value, meaning the amount of the loan, the payment, the interest rate, and the time. If I have the term of the loan, and I have the interest rate, and I have the amount, I can figure out what the payment is. I just hit compute payment. If I know the payment, and I know the interest, and I know the time, I can figure out how much is on the loan. Or what the amount of the loan is. Okay, so I can figure out things when I have the metrics in place. Same thing with the seller deal, with the deal that you're getting from a seller. What do I have to know? Monthly payments. If you don't ask that, don't ask me how I would structure the deal. I have no idea if I can even structure the deal if the seller isn't going to, hasn't answered that question. You have to ask that question. If they say no to that, it's easy, right? It's just a matter of price. And you got to get it at 70% less the repair cost. So that's super simple if they say no, or you go into realtor mode. But if they say, yes, I'm open to monthly payments, now you're thinking, oh, I might have a deal. This is what happens too often. People are like, I got a deal. They're open to owner financing. Let me send it to Joel. And I'm like, what deal? So they're open to monthly payments. You haven't told me, what do they expect down? What do they expect price-wise? What do they expect monthly? What do they owe on the underlying debt? For how long will they do it? You have to just ask these questions. Don't be intimidated to ask questions. You're not going to insult somebody by asking a question. It's more insulting to people who, are a little bit temperamental just to ask them, hey, look, you can probably get what you're asking. It's just that the only way that I'm willing to do that is if you're willing to take monthly payments for a period of time until I pay you off in full. Is that even an option for you? That's a very non-threatening way of asking the question. If someone gets mad at you for that question, then they're probably not going to be someone you want to work with anyway. But if they say yes or maybe, then what are the other variables we got to know? Okay, do you have the house free and clear? We have to learn if they have it free and clear, or we have to learn if they have a mortgage, what the balance is and what the payment is. And then from there, it's just 4 things. Tell me what price you'll sell it at. Don't argue with them. Write down what the best they'll do is. Take them through our process the negotiation cascade, right? We learn the price. Then what do we learn? We learn the monthly payment, which is going to be based on what they told us about their mortgage balance. That's why we need to know what the mortgage balance is. If it's free and clear, we're going to try to get this house for just taxes and insurance. Hey, can I assume that you're okay if I just cover your outgoing? You got taxes, obviously, insurance, maybe there's an HOA. As long as you're not coming out of pocket, you're good, right? Because your goal is to get paid off. So, the lower I have to pay you each month, the easier it is for me to get you paid in full, which is what I think you want, right? And then they'll say, no, I got to get more. Okay, well, what's the best you can do? And then you go through that, you record the monthly. If they have a mortgage, we simply say, hey, we don't want you to come out of pocket at all. We'll match what you're paying each month on this thing so that you don't come out of pocket. And that'll be the monthly payment that I'll make. If they want more, we learn what the best they can do is. So now we've got a price and we've got a monthly. These are just questions. You cannot send me you can send me a deal evaluation form. I'm going to send it right back to you. If you don't tell me what they said with respect to the mortgage balance and what they said with respect to price and what they said with respect to monthly, I have no clue what to do with it. I'm not a magician. Nobody is. I can try to do some magic and pretend what I think they would say, but what good does that do anybody? We're just wasting a whole lot of time when you haven't even asked the seller the question. We usually match these up to the existing term. Is that okay? No, I got to be paid in 6 months. 6 months, you need to do a little bit better than that, or you can't you? We learn what time frame they will give us. And then what's the last one? Down payment. Now, how are you going to tell me to evaluate a deal if I don't even know, if you haven't even had a discussion with respect to when their payments begin? Remember, we don't say right out of the gates how much down. We wait for them to say that to us, which a lot of times they will, but oftentimes they won't. And then you have a chance to get it for no money down. You still have a chance to get it for no money down when they bring it up, but you simply are going to say, so I'm paying a lot because I'm going to pay your closing costs. Wouldn't you agree that's thousands of dollars? Yes. I'm going to pay my closing costs, thousands of dollars more, right? So I'm into this thing, pretty heavily already, but keep in mind, I'm also going to be taking your beautiful house and making it even more beautiful for the person who's ultimately going to get a bank loan that comes in and buys this house. So I'm going to end up doing some staging of this, and I'm going to be investing thousands of dollars into that as well. You'd agree that's a lot of money, isn't it? And then another thing, I'm not going to just put the first person on my list in the property. I'm going to probably have to make a couple payments to you or to the underlying lender before I've even installed my tenant buyer who I'm trying to get qualified for the loan so that I can get paid on this. So I'm going to have a lot of money in this thing up front, aren't I? Sounds like it. Okay, so because of that, the first time you're going to see money from me is going to be that monthly payment until we pay off the full amount that we owe you, which you'll either get in one lump sum or over time, however we structure it. Fair enough? If they say yes, you just got a no money down deal. If they say no, I got to have a down payment. Well, didn't I just tell you I was putting a bunch of money down? I'm putting closing costs in for you, for me. I got all kinds of costs. If you got to have some money out of this right now also, it makes it a lot less attractive, but it doesn't change the total amount of money you get, does it? So you begin to have that negotiation, so to speak. And then based on their answers, you fill out the deal evaluation form. Maybe you go now peek and see what the Zillow estimate is, or try to do some comps on it. You take a look at market rent comps. You send me that. Now I can structure the deal. Now I can totally structure the deal. We could do this. We can't do that. They're only going to give you 6 months. That's not enough time. We got to go get more time. Maybe there's some kind of, barter that can occur for more time. So I can structure those deals till the cows come home, right? All day long. But I can't structure deals without these metrics, just like you can't use financial calculator without knowing certain variables up front. All right. So I recommend this calculator. I'm going to show you why you want to learn how to use a financial calculator. You can use these online ones if you like, but this one works a lot better. So let me give you a real life example of why you would want this. Now, oftentimes you'll go through that whole diatribe, if you want to call it that, dialogue, if I was really talking to a seller, and you get a deal. Okay, so let's say you get a deal and a financing. Now, you have to know how to use a financial calculator to do that. It's super easy, and it'll ensure that you're generating whatever the yield that you need is on your money. So for example, if you happen to have 100 grand sitting in a CD or a treasury earning 3-4%, whatever, you might say to yourself, geez, I can get 18% on this, and it's my house. You know what I mean? So I'm very secure. So I'll just go ahead and buy out of this thing with the 100 grand. Or you just go get a deal that would yield maybe 18, 20% or something like that and sell it to a note buyer where it yields 9, 10%, and you can make the difference in present value. So let me give you an example. Let's say we have a full 15 years, 180 months remaining on a note, and we're paying that seller $655 a month with a loan balance of $65,536. Well, if you enter those metrics into the calculator, 180 months, 655 per month, 65,536, you would learn that the interest rate on that is 8.75%. Now, or you could solve, like you could know 655, you could know 8.75%, you can know 65,000, and then you can learn that there's 180 months left on it, right? Any of those metrics, you can find out the other variable. Any three of those four, you can find out the other variable, but not, so we know all four now. What if you were willing to buy that note back from the seller, but they wouldn't give you a big enough discount? They wanted like $50,000 for it. And you're like, I don't want to give you 50 grand. I'd rather pay 655 a month, 15 years. When you do things that go outside of what you've negotiated, there should be some remuneration. So here's what we could do. Let's just think about this for a second. Do you think people would be happy who have a lot of money, would be happy getting a 12.5% return? As real estate investors, maybe not, but there's all kinds of passive investors who are invested in CDs, treasuries. There's older people, who are living on retirement funds. They would be very happy to have notes that yielded 12.5% that are secured by real estate. So if you know that a note buyer is okay with 12.5%, and the seller will take $50,000, you simply pull out your calculator and you enter in 180 for the month, 655 a month, and 12.5% for the interest rate. And then you hit compute PV, compute the present value. Well, what you're going to learn is that $53,143 is what a note buyer would pay if they wanted to get 12.5% on that. So all we have to do is agree to buy the note back from the seller for 50 grand, and then we assign it to our note buyer for 3143, right? 50,000 plus 3,143 equals 53,143. And in that sense, we owe that seller, or we owe that note buyer 65 grand still, because that's what they're buying. They're buying a note that has 65 grand on it at 655 a month for 180 months. They paid 53 grand for it. We bought it for 50 and sold it for 3. So we put 3 in our pocket, but we retain our 655 a month. Now, if we wanted to, we could just pay the 50, right? And then we don't owe anybody any money, right? So you can pick and choose what you want to do. But what we did in this case is we helped the seller, we helped the note buyer, we made a few $1,000s in the process. The seller is absolutely ecstatic about getting the 50 grand, and the note buyer is extremely happy with getting a note yielding 12.5% backed by real estate. This is the value of learning how to use a financial calculator when you're a real estate investor. I've been trying to negotiate a deal where I could buy a bunch of these things and just distribute them out to you. They're not very expensive, but they don't even make these anymore. That's why you got to get them on eBay. I do want to do like a seminar on how to use these financial calculators so that you can do deals like this, because deals like this are like the deal after the deal where you can really juice up your profits when you learn how to do these kinds of things. So I recommend this. If you can get it on eBay, or you can accomplish the exact same thing on any of these online sites right here, or any financial calculator you can accomplish. You just have to have these buttons, right? An N meaning the duration, an interest rate, a payment, a present value, and a future value. We don't even really use future value that much. That's more for predicting what the value of annuity will be in various interest rate circumstances. So anyway, I recommend that, and we're going to add something into this that goes deep into that. That's not going to be really part of the core curriculum. We'll probably just do it in the Facebook group or something like that. Y'all can join me on like a Saturday. We'll do like a session on it or something.